So when you're looking at a horse racing market, there are lots of clues all over the market in terms of how you think the market will develop and how people will bet on it. And if you know how people will bet on it, then you can actively trade it. So what are those clues? What is the major one that we're going to be looking at? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. If you're interested in learning to trade on Betfair, then visit the BetAngel Academy, where you have detailed, structured Betfair trading courses. Or why not visit our website where you can download a free trial of BetAngel Professional, but also visit the forum where you can get detailed images, examples, and downloadable files. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon if you want notification of new videos as they're released. So if we look at the racing markets, they follow a predictable cycle. I have talked about seasonality in racing. I think sometimes the importance of that has been lost on people. But basically we get the jump season that occurs, we get the flat turf season, and then we get some more weather racing that's sandwiched in between both of those at different times of the year. In the height of the summer, there is no all-weather racing, but in the height of the winter, there's plenty, because it's sort of filling the gaps fairly frequently. But each one of these codes has a start and a finish to the season, and at the moment, we're at the Aintree Grand National meeting. We're actually coming to the tail end of the jump season. So basically all the jumps horses will be put out to pasture for the summer. Well, I say all of them, not all of them, because there are some summer jumpers that take place that are trained to race in the summer on harder ground. But typically that's a minority, and the jumps races really tails off, and then the flat races start to come to prominence. So that affects the way that the markets trade and the types of markets that you're likely to see. It has a direct impact on the betting activity simply because of this regular cycle. So the best way to understand this is to actually have a look at some of this. And the first race that we have up today is at Aintree. It's a grade 3 handicap hurdle. So what this is telling you, because it's a grade 3, it's a high quality race, and because it's a handicap race, each of these horses must have had a form line. When a horse comes out for the first time and it's never raced before, it's a maiden, and basically will go into a maiden race. So people don't really have a clue. You may be able to work out from their lineage who the sire and dam was, basically where or how they think the horse may run. But generally it's like an open card. You don't really know how a horse is going to run until it actually runs. So if you have a race where horses have not won, then necessarily that is going to influence how people bet on it. They may or may not like something about that particular horse, or heard something about that horse, and that influences the way that the market trades. So if we look at this handicap hurdle, we can tell, because it's a handicap, it's a competitive market anyway, and because it's a high quality handicap, it's a very competitive market. But let's have a look at the form. So if we look at the favourites here, if we actually move our mouse over the top of the jockey silks, it shows up additional information, so we can see who's riding it, who the trainer is, and also what the form is. So this horse, if I just move it back over because it will time out, is 5 years old and is carrying 144 pounds. Now if we look at the form, then we can actually see that the form reads 1, 2, 3, 4. Funny enough, you read form from right to left. So this has finished 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then it finally won, and it's favourite in this particular race. So if we go down each one of these, and the last time it ran was 90 days ago. If we look down each one of these, you can see the form. So this form here is saying it finished 4th, it finished 1st. There's just been a horse withdrawn here. Isn't that funny? Wait For Me has just been withdrawn from this race. So if we go down here again, I've lost the one that I was looking at. Was it this one? It was this one. It finished 4th. It won its previous race, and then it was pulled up, and then you see this hyphen. So that was the previous season, basically. So you can see, basically, as we go down, you can get a view on how each one of these horses ran and what they did. So this one has an F in it, so that indicates that the horse fell. A P would be a pulled up. But you can basically see there are quite strong form lines here. The market probably roughly knows what the price should be on each one of these particular runners. So that would give you a clue. If the price on something absolutely plunges in for apparently no apparent reason, there may be no apparent reason for that. And therefore, maybe the price will start to head back in the other direction. Now let's look at the first flat race of the day. So if I look at the first flat race, it is a novice stakes at Leicester. So a novice stakes would be where horses, the exact definition would be that they haven't won on that particular type of race this season. So a horse will retain its novice rating if I'm trying to. I've actually got the definition over here correctly. So the definition is a novice race is a horse which has not run in a particular type of race prior to the start of the current season. A novice remains a novice until the end of the season in which it gains its first win in that particular category, no matter how many wins it achieves. So there you go. There's definition for each one of these races. I'm not an absolute total racing expert, but you tend to find in novice races that you get unraced horses, because these could be horses that fall into that tight definition that we've just spoken out. But it could also mean that these are horses that qualify that basically have no form lines whatsoever. So let's have a look at this novice race here. Again, if we move our mouse over the top here, you can see this particular horse, the favourite in this race, does have a form line. It finished third 6 days ago. So you can see that, you know, it does have a little bit of form. So let's have a look at some of these others when we go down here. Form, nothing. Form, nothing. Form, nothing. Form, nothing. And if we follow this list all the way down, I bet you that each one of these has absolutely no form apart from the favourite. And that is because we're in the early part of the flat season. So races where the horse has never won before are called maiden races. And they could be horses that are completely unraced, or horses that are just so bad that they've never won. And you can see a novice race is a variation on that. So that's why I was stumbling a bit about the exact definition of a novice, because that's what I know a novice race is a variation of a maiden where horses may have form, whereas a maiden could be low quality horses that have never won a race, or it could be horses that have never raced before. But I will casually glance at the types of races that we've got in front of us, and also the form lines to get a clue as to what we're seeing. So if you look at how those two individual races will trade, they will trade fairly differently, because when we look at the race that's got lots of form lines, people will probably have a very good view on what they think should be the right price in that type of race. Whereas if we look at all but the favourite in this race, nobody has a clue how these horses are going to run, because they have no form lines. They're fresh out. And if we look at Fode, for example, here, you can see it's a two-year-old. We can see that if we go down this list here, if we look at the age stroke weight, you can see that they're all 2-year-olds. So this is when horses come out and run for the first time. So these are horses that are out on the turf for the very first time that they've ever decided to race. So they may be a little bit nervous. They've probably never run in those conditions before. And so the market will be much more uncertain. But if, it could be that somebody's got the word and heard that one of these horses it ran well on the gallops, and, they're very confident, the yard's very confident about it. So gambles are much more likely to appear on a race like this. And there is a little bit of form on the favourite, so that's why it's the favourite. But basically still a lot of uncertainty. Out of all these horses in this race, in the 10 selections that we've got in this race, only one of them has any sort of form whatsoever, and there are no form lines to relate it to all of the other runners. So a very uncertain market that you're going to see here, in stark comparison to what we saw at Aintree. So if we look at the way the screen is set up, you don't really want to go down here and keep doing this on every individual race, because that would be pretty dull, wouldn't it? However, on BetAngel you can insert all of the information that you require straight onto the one-click screen or the ladder. So what we can do here is, if we go to the custom columns, I'm going to bring up the custom columns. It's appeared on my screen over here. We'll pin it over here, and what we can actually do is we can add in different values. You can completely customize everything that you want within the custom columns. So if I choose custom column 10, what we're going to do is we're going to edit custom column 10, and we're actually going to put some information within there. So if I go custom column 10, we're going to call this one form, and then the tooltip will be form for this horse. We're going to ask it to display additional information. You can select whatever color you like. So yeah, maybe we'll just choose something that sort of sticks out a bit more here. We'll choose green for the nice green grass of the flat turf season. In fact, let's make it a slightly deeper green, slightly lighter, because it is spring after all. And then the additional information we can display could be the jockey name, trainer name selection, last part of the selection's name, saddlecloth, store, production factor, SP, all of these individual items. You can see that's the information that you can display from there. But the advantage of being able to display that information is you'll be able to see all that information displayed on the one-click screen without you having to use the tooltip to understand what's going on. So let's select the runner's form. We don't need to apply any other information on here. And then we just need to save this particular column. So if I save that column, we now have a column called form. And if we scroll down here, it's down here somewhere, form, there we go. We can display that form within the market. So if I switch the headers on, we can move the form over here perhaps. I'm just trying to think where we would best display this. We'll display it here. It's up to you where you want to display it. But can you see there, at a glance, we know that this is a novice race, so we know that there are conditions attached to this race, but it's likely that some of these horses have not won, so this is effectively a maiden race. But we can see that instantly because we can see only the favourite has any sort of form line and there's no form line on any of the other runners. And once you get used to what your headers are, what the columns are, you can obviously switch it off, but some people prefer to have the headers on, some people prefer to have it off. I prefer to have it off because you get more screen space from there. And then once you're happy with the layout, then you can actually save the layout through the main layout settings here, but you can see we can save the layout or the individual settings on each individual runner so that they appear in these drop down boxes if we want to select that. So you could have the one-click screen set up so it displays form and one where it doesn't display form, and then you just switch happily between the two of them. Perfectly possible to do that. You can do pretty much anything on BetAngel. Now, I hear you say, well, that's great for the one-click screen. What about the ladder? Well, that's not a problem either, because if we go into the ladder, we have all of this screen space up here. This screen real estate is a phrase that I have often used, but you can modify that on BetAngel to introduce exactly the same type of data. If we go to the ladder settings by clicking on the little spanner here, it will bring up the ladder settings. And if we go to additional information, you can see I've queued this up for you already. These are all of the ladder settings that you get. If you click on the additional information tab, then you can see here you can show additional information. There is a separate video on how to show additional information, but I'm reprising it here so that you can understand what you're looking at. But you can see basically that we can show the additional information area here, and then we can, we'll do the same color again, and then we can choose preset information or stored values. So you can actually create automation that pre-populates a value that puts it into the ladder. So you can do some immensely clever stuff here. You can do stored values on the one-click screen as well, but you could basically ask BetAngel to look for certain characteristics. So, you know, it could look for something that has no form, or it could look across the entire market and say, each one of these runners has not won a race. Send me an alert, do something. So very, very flexible in terms of what you can do. I'm not going to cover that in this video. We'll just do the basic stuff here. But yeah, it's almost unlimited what you can do if you set up BetAngel to do it. And you would do that using stored values. On this occasion, we're just going to use the preset information. So if we go up here, you can see we've got the same selection of data available. And if I choose runner form, we can center that above the ladder. We can choose a certain color. We can just say form. And then that information will be displayed on the ladder. So if I put that in there, you can see that we've got all of that information available within that particular area, and then that information will be displayed at the top. In fact, that's come out really dark. Sorry, you can't really see it, so big mistake using light green on this particular color display. So I've changed it to black, and you can see that we've got that information from there. You can move it to the left, to the right, or you can concatenate. You can add something on the left, something on the right, and something on the center. So if you want to put information in the center, something on the left, something on the right, you can do that on the ladder, and it will show that information for you. So yeah, there's plenty of things that you can do. So if you look at those two individual races, one was a late season jumps race with very strong form lines, and it was a high quality handicap. The next race was a novice, for which I gave you the definition, which I had to read out to give you the exact definition. But basically it was an early season flat race where there were very few form lines. In fact, only the favourite had a little bit of form. So the betting on that market is going to be a little bit more erratic because nobody really knows much about these individual horses. So, you know, that information is available within BetAngel for you to use. You can populate it how you wish. You can modify BetAngel to display it in a number of different ways. But I recommend, especially at the beginning of the flat turf season, it's worth having that information to hand, because you could likely flip from horses that are out for the first time this season to horses that have a little bit of form line to horses that have never raced at all before. And you'll notice that each one of those markets has very different characteristics. And if you know what those different characteristics are, then you'll be able to trade it a little bit better. But also, you can now put that information on BetAngel to alert that to you, so that minimises the amount of time that you have to spend assessing that race. It'll be right there in front of you, ready for you to trade. So anyway, hope that has been useful for you.